100 FPL tips to help make you win Fantasy Premier League. Beginner tips. Learn the full point system. Choose forwards involved in goals. Choose midfielders involved in goals. Choose defenders involved in goals. Choose penalty takers. Choose defenders and goalkeepers who actually keep clean sheets. Choose players likely to play 90 minutes every game. Avoid players who may not start. Remember to set up your team every week. If you don't do well, get good, scrub. Game mechanic tips. Focus on a great starting 11 rather than the perfect 15. Get your bench in the correct order every single game week. Start your players who have the best fixtures. Start the players you think will score the most points. Don't be afraid to start players who play against other players in your team. Make sure to set your captain every week. Captain the player you think will score the most points, or captain the most popular captain if you're boring. Make sure to set your vice captain every week just in case your captain doesn't turn up. Organise your players per kit colour for pretty screenshots. Are very, very important. Fixture tips. Every team will play every other team throughout the season, but not in the same order. That allows some teams to have a better run of fixtures than others at different parts of the season. Target players that have a better fixture run than others. Target good players with good fixtures. Avoid bad players with good fixtures. Don't be afraid to remove good players when they have bad fixtures. Look further ahead than just the next fixture. Plan your team's fixtures weeks in advance, but not too far ahead. Use a fixture ticker to keep track of teams' future fixtures. Remember, fixture difficulty is dynamic and changes per week depending on team form, injuries, lineups, etc. Green fixtures good. Red fixtures bad. Transfer tips. Understand you only have one free transfer every week. Make it count. You can make extra transfers for a -4 point hit each transfer. Don't be afraid to take those hits. Don't take too many hits. You can hold a maximum of 2 transfers at a time. Don't burn or waste any transfers. Focus your transfers on injured players first. Focus your transfers on bad players before getting rid of good players. It's never too late to transfer in a player you might have missed. Only make transfers you want to make. Don't copy content creators' transfers and teams, otherwise you're a nonce. Chip tips. Understand what your FPL chips do before using them. Bench boost in the week you think your bench will score the most points. Maximize your bench boost with a wildcard before or after it to set it up or get out of the setup. Triple captain the player you think will score the most points in a game week or season. Aim to triple captain a player with a double game week, much more potential. Free hit when you think you can get the most gain from your current team. Don't be afraid to keep some of your players in on a free hit. Plan your wildcard in advance to get the most out of it. Choose players in your wildcard for the long term. Don't spunk all of your chips for the haha funnies, plan them all out. Double and blank game week tips. Blank game weeks are when some teams don't play in a game week, making them blank. You don't have to use chips to do well in a blank game week. Don't be afraid to use chips in a blank game week. Plan ahead to have at least a good amount of playing players for blank game weeks. Prioritize blank game week players who you also want to keep after the blank game week. Double game weeks are when teams play twice in a game week. Use your chips in double game weeks to get all of the points. Choose double game week players likely to start in both of the games. Don't choose a bad double game week player over a better single game week player just for the double. Double game weeks equals double the fun. Take hits, rip up your team, burn your house down. Have fun with it. It's just like an extra Christmas. I love it. Strategy tips. Maximize your squad by finding cheap gems and enablers. Have a cheap bench to maximize your main starting team. Rotate cheap players based on fixtures so you don't have to sell a player with just one bad fixture. Choose low-owned differential players if you want to climb the ranks faster. Choose high-owned template players if you want to protect your rank. Pay attention to who your rivals own and don't own. Experiment with different playstyles to understand different strategies of the game. Find a playstyle that works for you to maximize fun. Be dynamic in the playstyles you take. No season is the same as another. Get addicted to the game so much you'll actually hate yourself if you're doing crap, so that you're forced to do better. You need to get better strategy. Stat tips. Stats can be used to allow you to make more educated predictions on future player point scoring. Expected goals, or XG, is the amount of goals a player was expected to score from the location of the shots he took, with a higher expected goals meaning more chance of goals. Expected assists, also known as XA, is the amount of assists a player was expected to get from the chances they created for their teammates which led to a shot. The higher expected assist equals the more chance of assists. XG conceded is the expected goals the teams conceded based on the shots they faced. A lower XG conceded in total equals more chance of keeping more clean sheets. Use these stats to give you hints on how players are performing or are likely to keep performing by their numbers. Use stats as a measuring tool and an addition to the decision-making process. Don't just use stats to decide on players, it's a hint, not an answer. Don't make conclusions from a small data sample. There can always be anomalies in data. Understand, some players' stats do not align with other players in averages and projections. One player could have much better finishing, so them having a lower XG may not matter compared to another one. Stats can be used to help hint towards the future, but it can't actually tell you the future. Be dynamic and open-minded and treat stats as hints, not the absolute truth and the be-all and end-all answers. Every time you mention to a colleague that you use stats for FPL, remind them your life is so much better than theirs. Psychology tips. Be patient with your new signings. Don't make rage transfers after just one bad performance. Judge your FPL decisions rather than the outcomes. Not everything is predictable. Don't choose players just because they play for your favourite team. Don't avoid players just because they play for a rival team. Detach emotions and bad experience from players. They can always improve. Ignore FOMO, fear of missing out. You can't own everyone and you can only control your team. Try to avoid fake narratives and take opinions from others with a pinch of salt and always make your own decisions yourself. Do whatever makes you have the most fun. If you aren't having fun, the game is playing you. You aren't playing the game. If you get upset about your FPL team, don't. Depression rates drop to 0, hey. Tips. Take most tips as suggestions, not strict rules. There are different approaches to different parts of the game. Some tips may have worked for previous seasons, but that does not mean they will work for future seasons. Some tips may be true for certain playstyles. It's okay to not follow some big tips. Don't be afraid to ignore or bend some tips if you don't want to follow them. Chip tips are very generic. Another strategy may actually be better for your team than another team. Transfer tips are very generic. They may not be the best for your team than they are for another team. Tips on your team from someone else are always worth less than your own thoughts. No one has thought about that particular move more than you, and you should make your own decision. Take different tips into consideration depending on your current approach, as if you're chasing, you don't want to follow passive tips, and if you're protecting, you don't want to follow too aggressive tips. Remember that most tips are suggestions. You can decide for yourself if you want to ignore them or follow them completely, but always play your game and how you want to play it. And the number one tip of the season, subscribe to Nathan Bacon FC for the most fun, the most dank, the most amazing FPL content in the world. As I, right here, am on the road to number one in the world. We will do it. Join us on this adventure. And that right there is 100 FPL tips to make you a better FPL manager, to help make you win all of your mini leagues and climb the global ranks to beat everyone you know. Apart from me. Unlucky! Thanks for watching. Let me know your favourite tip of the bunch, but also, remember...
Don't be a cheeky scrub. Subscribe to Nathan Bacon right now. Don't let your memes be dreams.